4th year of marriage. I found a message in Tristan's email from the man who ran over my sister. The message also included a picture of the two of them together. The date showed it was last month. It happened to be when Tristan was traveling on business. The email read, "Brother, the results of this medical test came back. It's been 4 years since Sophie's sister's heart was transplanted to me. There's no adverse reaction. Thanks to you and Liam, gave me a new life." After reading this, I smiled. It's been 4 years. Isabella can't hold it in any longer. 4 years ago, after the video of Isabella running over my sister came out, my boyfriend Liam hired the best lawyer for her, helped her to get rid of the suspicion when I was most helpless. Isabella's stepbrother Tristan came forward. He was righteous. He sent Isabella to jail himself later. Tristan asked me to marry him. I said yes. I played nice for 4 years, and now it's time for the 3 of them to die. When Tristan fell asleep, I saw Isabella's birthday wishes. I was wrapped in a blanket, curled up in a chair, reading the emails one by one. When we approached the sisters, the purpose was for the heart, letting Liam sacrifice it in the beginning. So much for falling in love with her. Now I want my brother to do it for me. To marry her. If I'd known, I should have died at birth. I wouldn't have let you suffer so much. I took a sip of tea. Continue reading Tristan's reply. Don't talk nonsense. As long as you are happy, brother is willing to do anything. This brother-sister relationship is really extraordinary. Thousands of emails. It started 4 years ago. The messages all came from Isabella, who should be serving a prison sentence. Cold wind blew in through the half-open window. I'm shivering. The cup in my hand didn't hold steady. It fell to the ground with a loud clatter. Soon, Tristan's hurried footsteps came. Looks very flustered. "Sophie, why aren't you resting so late?" He stood in front of me in a panic, quickly turned the computer to himself, stared at the WeChat chat on the screen for a while. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Carefully said, "Your assistant Emma called for the file. I saw that you were sleeping, so I looked for it myself. I've already sent it to her. Did I wake you up?" He pointed to his cell phone. He quickly glanced at his phone, noticed dozens of missed calls from Emma. "Wife is so sweet. It's good to have you," he said, carefully observing my expression, confirming that everything is normal before being completely at ease. I gently picked up the pieces of the cup on the floor, throw it into the trash can, pretend to casually ask, "I just accidentally glanced at your WeChat where someone said they saw Isabella. Is she out already?" Tristan answered softly, gently touched my head, whispered comfortingly, "You haven't been in good health lately. I haven't been thinking about how to tell you. Isabella got out of jail early last month for good behavior. I knew you would not want to see her, so I immediately arranged for her to leave the country. Over the years, Isabella did realize she was wrong. You used to be the best of friends. You know her character very well, right?" He held my hand tightly. He kept rubbing it in his palm. He kept his eyes on me. I pursed my lips gently, slowly nodded. Since she realized her mistake, let her come back. Tristan listened. With a surprised look on his face, he looked up. I could tell he was genuinely pleased. He said, "Wife, you're too good. Isabella will be so happy to know that." I tilted my head gently, leaning against his shoulder, a light smile on my face. 4 years have passed. Isabella is the main character. Of course she had to see for herself the great show I had planned for her. Tristan didn't know. I've known for a long time that Isabella wasn't in jail. Senior year, Mom and Dad died unexpectedly. I was left with my sister who wasn't well. In order to support my sister, I rushed to do all kinds of part-time jobs every day after class. I didn't have enough to eat for a long time, and I was overworked. My already weak body got worse. That's when Isabella appeared. She came into my life like a little son, as the daughter of a rich family, quickly contacted the media, raised a large donation for me. She also hired someone to help Sophie with her health. No one could believe it. The always proud Isabella would be friends with a poor girl like me who can't even eat. I didn't think about it myself. 4 years in college. The only contact I had with her was probably Liam. At that time, Isabella and Liam were recognized as the perfect couple on the campus forum. They grew up together. And had a strong bond. Liam finally chose me as his girlfriend. I was surprised, after all, except for my good grades. I don't excel in anything else. Isabella was depressed for a long time, but she never gave me any trouble. I always thought she would hate me. As it turned out, she reached out to me. With this donation, I had a hard time making it to graduation. I was able to enter the city hospital as an intern. To celebrate me, Isabella specially chartered the best hotel. I wanted to refuse, but she pressed my shoulder, softly persuaded. This meal is full of famous ophthalmologists from the city hospital. Isn't Sophie's condition aggravated? You can ask. Besides, my brother went to great lengths to get them together. You can show your face. It'll be good for your future internship. I hesitated. Sophie's eyes are in critical condition. There's no time to lose. I have to change jobs quickly. I need to get enough money for the operation. Thinking about it, I nodded my head. That night, I drank myself into a daze by the time I left the hall. It was 3 a.m. The biting cold wind and everyone's screams woke me up at once. I fixed my eyes. Sophie had collapsed in a pool of blood. There was no breath. On the opposite side stood Isabella. There was no expression on her face, although the surveillance of the incident road was broken. But there was a car parked by the side of the road. The car recorder captured the whole process. Sophie was crossing the street. The parked car suddenly accelerated. It directly hit her, however, as my boyfriend Liam, but helped Isabella to find the best lawyers. Their aim was to put all the blame on the blind Sophie. In the most helpless moment, Isabella's stepbrother Tristan stepped forward. He didn't hesitate to help me find all the evidence. Put Isabella in jail. For this, he fell out with his family, didn't see his parents for years. Later, he asked me to marry him. I agreed. Tristan thought he hid it well. In fact, before he proposed, I overheard his conversation with his parents, figured everything out. What I thought was salvation across class lines was actually an elaborate setup by the Thompson family. I did it to get Sophie's heart. Since then, I've slowly started planning, throwing Isabella the most memorable homecoming party exclusively for her. I pretended to be weak on purpose. Tristan had to work from home a lot so as to take better care of me, but it also made him lose several cooperative projects. Even so, my mental state is still getting worse. Tristan, let's have another wedding. It's because of Sophie. I couldn't finish my sentence. I couldn't help coughing. Tristan hurriedly patted my back, nervously agreed. I'll listen to you. We'll have a wedding when you're better. I will make you the most beautiful bride. I forced a smile, reaching out to hold his arm. I was too paranoid all these years. Sophie's death can't be blamed entirely on Isabella when she comes back. I have to apologize to her properly. Tristan's gaze was a little averted. He had feelings for Isabella that he shouldn't have. Naturally, he doesn't want her to come back before the wedding. He's been using the excuse that I'm not feeling well to keep me from going out, not letting me go out. Not many people know me. He gently helped me straighten the quilt. Said, let's talk about this later. I said sadly. Does Isabella blame me for putting her in jail? She went abroad as soon as she got out of jail. Does she not want to see me? I purposely said the word jail extra heavy. Tristan immediately consoled. How could it be? Isabella should be held accountable for her mistakes. Don't think too much. I will always support you. If she doesn't correct herself, I will definitely help you discipline her. I smiled and pushed him, let him go work in the study. After he left, I immediately paused the recording. I cut out a clip and sent it anonymously to Isabella. I know her too well. I know her too well. Even though she has Liam in her heart, she wants all of Tristan's love. She could tolerate Tristan marrying me for her, but she couldn't accept Tristan's feelings for me. In the beginning, she used ethics and morality to bind Tristan. To make him work for her willingly without going any further. To work for her willingly, in order to make me feel at ease. Tristan started to bring me to various parties. He often showed his love to me in front of the media. He also made a high-profile announcement that he would make up a grand wedding for me. Our redemptive love soon hit the hot search engines. All these news were forwarded to Isabella. I see. Now, I just have to wait patiently for her to take the bait as expected. The next night, Isabella arrived at the villa. She looked as exquisite as she did 4 years ago. Not a trace of having been in jail. The clothes she wore and the things she used were all up to date. I stood in the middle of the stairs, quietly watching her. Isabella acted as if nothing had happened, smiling at me. Long time no see, Sophie. She saw that I didn't say anything, sighed softly. Didn't my brother say you've forgiven me? Why do I get the feeling that you still hate me? She laughed with abandon. There was an obvious provocation in her eyes. She slowly approached my ear, whispered, your sister's heart is quiet with me. It's all thanks to Sophie's sister. Otherwise, how could I have survived until now? I tried my best to suppress the anger in my heart. My fingernails pinched into my palms. She was clearly trying to make me angry. I've been pretending to be soft all these years. as long as someone mentioned Sophie in front of me. I would lose control of my emotions. Even after so much time apart, she can still easily find my weakness, but she doesn't know that. I love her unselfishness. I pretended to be crazy. My mouth kept shouting Sophie, and I reached out to touch her, but before I could touch her, Isabella fell backwards. She fell down the stairs. Isabella, Tristan shouted eagerly, rushing from behind. He slammed into my shoulder, pushing me forward. Another hard crash. Tristan turns his head in surprise. Seeing me knocked to the ground, was covering my stomach in pain. A hint of hesitation and contradiction showed in his eyes. He raised his foot to come over to help me, but then stopped where he was. Isabella saw this situation, immediately cried out, "Brother, I just want to apologize to Sophie. I really know it's wrong." But she said while sobbing. Tears fell one by one, smashing into Tristan's heart. Tristan panicked at once. He picked her up and coaxed her with his hands and feet. "Sophie, are you crazy? This is too much. This matter has been over for so long. Why are you still holding on to it? If anything happens to Isabella, I will never forgive you. I'll never forgive you." He picked up Isabella. He didn't even look at me. He went straight out. Isabella was lying on Tristan's back. She smiled triumphantly at me, who was lying on the steps, moaning in pain. Her eyes sparkled, the same as when we first met, her lips open and close slightly, wordlessly speaking to me. Idiot. It wasn't until the two of them disappeared completely. I didn't come back to my senses. I looked down, found a wet patch underneath me. Couldn't help but smile. It didn't take long. The prearranged reporters rushed in carrying cameras, seeing me lying pale in a pool of blood. A scream rang out at once. I closed my eyes, letting them film my weak and helpless appearance. The blood bag Emma gave worked well. "Isabella, feel good about my first gift to you." I opened my eyes again. It was already the next day. Tristan was lying tiredly on the side of the hospital bed. His hand was still holding mine tightly. Although only half of his face was showing, I could still see the stubble on his chin. I gently pulled my hand out. Tristan immediately woke up with a start. Sitting up violently, "You woke up. Is there anything else wrong with your body? You don't even know you are pregnant," he asked continuously. I looked straight into his eyes. Asked back in a hoarse voice. Isabella told me, "The heart inside her body is Sophie's." The words just fell. The entire hospital room went awfully quiet. Tristan froze for a long time, before trying to grab my hand again. I didn't duck. He said carefully, "Sophie signed an organ donation form before she died. Isabella had a heart attack in prison, so I didn't mean to hide it from you. It's just that you were emotionally unstable at the time. I was afraid you couldn't stand it. Wife, look at it from another angle. Sophie's heart is inside Isabella's body. Isn't that a good thing? At least she came back to you in another way. Right or wrong, that car accident affected me a lot. Tristan handled Sophie's funeral. I didn't even know there was such a thing as organ donation. Don't you think it's a coincidence? Sophie just died in an accident. Her heart was a perfect match." Tristan's calm expression began to waver. He ignored the skepticism in my eyes. With difficulty, neither of us wanted things to turn out this way. I was worried that you would get carried away. That's why I chose to hide it from you. In order not to make you worry too much, I'll just donate my sister's remains. He was afraid that I would think too much, so keep in touch with that murderer every day. For her sake, he even pretended to love me just to keep me out of trouble. What did he say afterward? I couldn't hear anymore. I just watched quietly. It was finally quiet in the hospital room. Is our baby gone? Tristan was a little flustered by my sudden change of subject. He tried to speak several times, but the words reached his mouth and then swallowed back. In the end, he just nodded his head. I reached out and touched my stomach. The few tears I managed to squeeze out slid down my face and into my hair. Tristan's hands were shaking. He had a heartbroken look on his face, was about to comfort me, but was interrupted by me. I said, "Tristan, I want to move to an apartment in the university. Is that okay? The one Isabella lived in when she was in college. She moved in with Sophie and me to be closer to me. She moved in with Sophie and me. No one's been there since the accident." Tristan agreed without saying a word. Called and had the house transferred into my name. He thought I just wanted to relive the happy times with Sophie, but I was the only one who knew. What I really wanted was hard evidence that would keep them from ever turning over the president of the Thompson Group in order to help a murderer's stepsister, causing his wife to miscarry the news under my promotion. It's been at the top of the hot search list for several days in a row. Many people followed the previous news of his high-profile love affair, dug out the inside story of the car accident. Back then, Isabella was the perpetrator of the car accident, but ended up transplanting the heart of the deceased. This matter instantly exploded on the internet. People couldn't help but wonder if this was intentional murder. How in the world could there be such a coincidence? It just so happens that the person who ran over the dead person was successfully matched with himself or their own good friend's sister. Is it for the heart to make friends with others? The boyfriend actually helped the perpetrator to get off the hook. He even married the perpetrator's stepbrother. It's really hard to figure out. There's already a lot of controversy in the community about body donation. Thompson Group is mainly in the pharmaceutical business. It makes people start to suspect that the donor's information was leaked. It became a source of organs for the rich. Thompson Group's stock dropped one after another. Tristan had his hands full. Isabella's situation was worse. Her phone was ringing off the hook. Many people found their way to her hospital room. At the door, accusing her of murder. Now, the moment she hears someone talking, she gets nervous. The whole person shrinks under the quilt, covering her ears and shivering. Tristan was too busy himself, so he asked Emma to take care of Isabella. Even the things of the institute were all put off to Emma to do. This gave me a lot of opportunities. I stood at the door. I heard Isabella smashing things in the hospital room. Emma was comforting her softly. Why is something so long past being brought up again? It's just an insignificant person who died. Even if I did it for myself, didn't her organs also save others? Now they're accusing me of being a saint. If you ask me, a useless person dies so that others can live. What's wrong with that? Emma's eyes moved slightly. The hand that was changing the medicine suddenly stopped for a moment. That's right. MTK's Sophie has also saved a lot of people. People who are willing to donate their organs are really amazing. Isabella heard it at once, immediately sat up from the bed, grabbed her cell phone and typed quickly. It didn't take long. Her social updates were updated. She posted the organ donation consent form that she signed a few years ago, and the photos that accompanied Sophie at that time spelled out into 9 pictures, and also wrote a paragraph. I signed the consent form before Sophie did. I was going to donate my corneas to her when I died. I never knew she was influenced by me to sign the consent form. The car accident was purely accidental. I had angina. I couldn't control the brakes and hit Sophie. All these years I've been in pain, but I don't dare to die. Because Sophie's heart beats in my chest. I want to live well for her. This tweet was quickly popularized. I turned off my cell phone, just as the door to the ward opened. Emma was carrying the rest of the takeout, nodded to me and said, "Madam, the president asked me to take good care of MTK's Isabella." I froze for a moment, looked out of her eyes. Yes, you do have to keep an eye on her. I used to hide behind me. Sophie, who shyly greeted Isabella and the others, was the same way. Even though she couldn't see, she kept her eyes open, staring intently. Isabella's tweets paid off. The netizens' attacks on her gradually decreased. Many began to speak for her. The previous incident of Thompson Group selling protective gear at low prices during the flu. It was also brought back up under Tristan's arrangement. Isabella was hurt pretty badly at first. Right, if she unfortunately passes away, wouldn't the organs have been donated as well? I don't think anyone would take that kind of risk. That's true. The flu was really bad that year. Thompson Group was the only pharmacy that didn't raise the price of masks and sanitizer. We have to remember that. I still wonder, what a coincidence. It's a perfect match, and it did. After the online reviews got better, Isabella saw that I didn't respond last time. She couldn't help but come to me again. I looked at her in a hospital gown, but with a rosy face, smiled and said, "Looks like you are quite forgiving to yourself." Didn't come down hard. Maybe Tristan's pretending to love me in front of the media earlier had gotten her all worked up. She doesn't hide it now. She sneers. Rolled up her sleeve, revealing a faint bruise. I just accidentally touched it. Brother got so nervous that he pushed you down. You were unlucky. Just lost the baby. I'll just say a few words. My brother didn't even have time to see you. You lost your sister and your child. In the end, you only get someone who doesn't love you. You're as pathetic as when we first met. Looking at her smug look, I can't help but feel a bit ridiculous. You're so sure that Tristan only has you in his heart. Then, why did you come back as soon as you heard he was going to make up his wedding with me? Do you have no confidence in yourself either? Isabella froze. How do you know? I ignored her, turned my head out of the window. She asked, "You sent it to me. There's something wrong with you, thinking you can win this way." I heard this. Couldn't help but laugh. She still thinks I'm trying to compete with her. It doesn't matter if I win or not. I'm his wife now. Everyone knows he loves me like crazy. Isabella's face turned red with anger. He just wanted to hit me. Just when Tristan came to deliver the food, he interrupted it. He could only suppress his anger. Said he came to apologize to me and left in disgrace. I said, I want to go to the old house this afternoon. Pack up Sophie's things. Tristan promised. Feed me slowly, he said. Sophie, I understand that these things are hard for you. Sophie and the baby. His voice was a little choked, rubbed his nose. Then he said, I'll make it up to you later. We'll have a good life together, okay? I looked straight at him. My eyes were firm. What about Isabella? Tristan thought I was just upset about Isabella. After a moment's thought, he answered, when Liam comes back, we'll do what we always do, okay? Before the accident, they pretended to be very close to me. Now they have to pretend to be the most loving couple. I'm laughing in my heart. He's just like Isabella, greedy and stupid. He wants to take advantage of everything. Before I could say anything, there was a sharp knock on the door. Emma was a bit nervous. Her voice trembled and she said, President, Mtks Isabella saw the news on the internet. It's a suicide again. Tristan immediately stood up. Without saying a word, he went out. When he reached the door, he remembered me. Sophie, I'm going to check on Isabella first. Let Emma accompany you to clean up in the afternoon. I'll let Emma go with you this afternoon. He turned around and left. Emma then put her heart down. A look of amusement appeared on her face. She glanced at the hospital bed, pulled clothes out of the closet and handed them to me. She went home and threw a fit. Heard Tristan pushed off his afternoon job to stay with you. Immediately acted pathetic, forcing me to come and grab someone. I responded, changing clothes indifferently, being so irritated by me. She definitely wanted to prove her weight in Tristan's heart even more. Tristan and I had just eased up a bit. She was eager to break the window paper, to make Tristan fall for her, but the more she is like this, the better. That way, Tristan won't have to pay as much attention to me. In the hospital room, Isabella hugged Tristan tightly. The wound on her wrist had already been bandaged. Only a little bit of blood can be vaguely seen seeping out. Tristan had a heartbroken look on his face. He said softly, Don't do this again. What if I don't make it? Isabella hugged his waist tightly. Tears wet his shirt. Brother, do you hate me? I'm the one who killed Sophie, and now I'm the one who made you and Sophie lose your baby. But I really didn't mean it. I didn't know it would be such a coincidence. I wanted to listen to you. I wanted to find a new match. But when I was driving, I had angina and ran into Sophie. I ran into Sophie. Brother, do you think I'm a jinx? The car accident 4 years ago. That car accident 4 years ago has been sticking in Tristan's heart like a knife. It was hard for him to convince the other two. He planned to find a new match, but things just happened by coincidence. That car accident, Isabella and Sophie could only save one. Thinking about how Sophie almost fainted at that time, he had a hard time in his heart. He held back his complicated emotions, gently patted Isabella's back. Don't talk nonsense. I would never hate you. These things are beyond anyone's control. Sophie won't blame you either. He had also suspected that Isabella was doing it on purpose, but all these years together had disabused him of that notion. In any case, he must be 1,000 times better to Sophie in the future, definitely make up for the previous hurt. Thinking about this, he then felt relieved. Meanwhile, Emma and I found many documents in the dusty apartment. The main content of the records were all about Sophie's physical condition and how well her and Isabella's bodies match. These investigations were initiated before I met Isabella. I flipped through the data, eyes slowly becoming blurry. If I could have noticed it earlier, maybe Sophie wouldn't have gotten into trouble. A week passed. Thompson Group lost some projects in the last storm, but it has finally survived. It's busy preparing for its IPO. Liam specially flew back from abroad to help. When he was present, Isabella's enthusiasm for Tristan has been tempered. I noticed Tristan looking at the back of those two men with a melancholic expression many times. Evening, Emma brought Tristan his tuxedo and reminded me to make sure I attend the Thompson Group launch party the next day. I picked up the dress and took a closer look. This dress is in the style of innocent little white flowers. At first glance, it looked like a style Isabella would like. He casually threw the dress on the sofa. That's the best she can do. I'll be on time for the launch. I've been preparing for this play for 4 years. Of course it has to culminate at the most crucial moment. Tomorrow, that's the best chance. When I arrived at the banquet, Tristan, Liam, and Isabella were being interviewed by a group of reporters. Tristan said, "I run this foundation. It's to help children who have heart problems like my sister, so that they can get timely treatment. I have formed a research team that focuses on heart problems. Some progress has been made so far. Clinical trials will start soon." Isabella has been enthusiastically involved in charity work, with a special focus on youth mental health issues. In the past year, she helped many children who couldn't think straight due to school bullying and family pressure. Tristan's words just fell. Liam immediately announced his marriage to Isabella. He announced that he would give her all his shares. Everyone around is surprised. Said Isabella's life was like a heroine in a novel. As soon as I entered, everyone suddenly quieted down. Then all looked at Isabella and me. She and I wore the same dress. Some people say, a sparrow can't become a phoenix even if it's on a branch. Sophie has been around for so many years. She still looks so cheap. If it wasn't for her sister's help, how could she marry Tristan? If Thompson Group goes public today, Tristan's value will definitely rise again. She is really lucky. Hearing the ridicule of the people next to her, Isabella raised her head proudly, with one hand on one, showing me her status. I stand next to Tristan, not caring about the upcoming launch. Just when everyone thought the PPT would be shown, the big screen suddenly went black. When it lit up again, the display changed completely. Sophie's body data file appeared on the screen. There was also quite a bit of organ donor information, but each piece of data was labeled with the word unsuitable in a big way. The reporter noticed. These investigations were actually initiated before the crash. Isabella wasn't who she said she was, living with guilt and pain for the last 4 years. In fact, she traveled around and documented her luxurious and happy life on her social media platforms Trumpets. In addition, that conversation she had with Emma in the hospital room has been publicized. This is not taking the lives of the poor seriously. They eat and drink well by themselves, having fun, enjoy what they should enjoy, and when they get sick, just pick any suitable replacement. Doesn't anyone care that they can easily get a list of donors? Rich people can not only do whatever they want, they can also pick their favorite organs. When I'm rich later, I want to do the same. It's scary to think about it. Did I sign up to donate my body? As soon as a big shot matches me successfully, I'll suddenly die. I also heard that a lot of human trafficking nowadays, it's actually to prepare an organ bank for the rich. Tristan is in a hurry. Rush someone to the backstage to turn off the projection. But everything that should be recorded has been recorded. A lot of it is still live. For this listing, Thompson Group deliberately invited a lot of official news media. All the major platforms are broadcasting the live situation. Isabella was too scared to speak, just kept waving her hands and screaming, shouting that it was all fake, just when they wanted to hide in the backstage. Suddenly, a black shadow rushed up. Without saying a word, he slapped Isabella. The crisp sound wasn't too loud in the hall, but quite a few people still noticed it. Isabella's fair face swelled all of a sudden. The man didn't stop, grabbed her by the hair, dragged her to the floor. "What are you doing?" Tristan reacted immediately, pushed the woman away as hard as he could, holding Isabella tightly behind him. I pretended to be crushed by the crowd. I screamed and grabbed Tristan. I desperately pulled him to the side. Isabella hid behind him. She was caught again. She was slapped again. The woman's eyes were red, shouting angrily at Isabella. "She's the one who killed my son. We specially hired the best psychologist." As a result, she said she was a psychologist who came back from abroad. In less than half a month, she made my son jump off a building. He was only 17 years old. Lily's son was under pressure from his studies. He suffered from severe depression after the doctor's treatment. His condition has improved a lot, but Isabella heard about it somewhere, hardly saying that others are suppressing their emotions. It'll be too late if it's not treated in time. During her treatment, he at first just felt stressed about his studies. Then he slowly felt that the students around him were discriminating against him and bullying him. Even his parents became a horrible presence in his eyes who only forced him to study. Eventually, he could not withstand the pressure. He chose to jump off a building to end his life. Isabella's face was half swollen. Tears kept falling down. Mouth repeatedly said, I didn't. Tristan was very sad in his heart, but he was held tightly by me. He couldn't get away to protect her. It took half an hour. The security guards that Emma brought in were able to bring the situation under control. Isabella was beaten all over her body. Her clothes were hanging in tatters. This launch party is totally messed up. Not to mention the IPO. Thompson Group can't even survive. Many partners have canceled their cooperation. Even big hospitals don't dare to deal with Thompson Group anymore. They are afraid of being accused of trading patient information. The information Emma brought from the Research Institute came into play. Several pharmacies under Thompson Group were found to be selling fake drugs. They're still developing fake drugs. The aim is to cut costs, to slow down the recovery of patients, to make a profit. Many people gathered under the Thompson Group building to demand compensation. Thanks to the security guards, Tristan's situation is stable. Isabella's situation is worse. The place where she lives is surrounded tightly. Many people with loudspeakers were shouting downstairs that she was a murderer. She grew up following her mom after she married into the Thompson family. She was treated like a young lady. She's been treated like a lady. Now she's being pointed at and cursed at. All kinds of nasty words were thrown at her. She was furious. She called Tristan several times. They all got hung up on. Even Liam had no time for her now. Outside, there was a lot of cursing and the sound of rocks hitting the glass. She was shivering with fear. Before they could get back to it, the flu incident that had been used to exonerate the Thompson Group earlier had also been revealed to be problematic. The flu broke out suddenly a few years ago. A lot of people got sick because they were ill-prepared. Protective gear was especially in short supply back then. Many businesses made a fortune selling them, but Thompson Group didn't. And here's the strange thing. Every time things got better, someone started spreading the word. It's been going on and off for 4 or 5 years. Recently, it was revealed. The initial flu was indeed an accident, but then the Thompson Group has been deliberately spreading the virus. They've even been secretly working on a more powerful virus in their labs, trying to make money by selling drugs. This incident instantly provoked everyone's anger. After this incident, Thompson Group's stock price plummeted. Everyone just cared about forwarding those marketing videos. No one cared if the rumors were true or not. It didn't take long. Isabella and Tristan were taken away by the police. Tristan is still clean. He did advise Isabella not to wait for this match. Let her wait for something else. As for the flu, he hadn't even taken over the Thompson Group yet, and it's a complete fabrication. There was no evidence. So he was fine. But Isabella was a different story. The only reason she was cleared of the charges was because of Liam's help. Thanks to Liam's help. This matter can't really stand up to close scrutiny. She could barely hold it together at that time, after the police came up with one piece of evidence after another. Her psychological defense completely collapsed. She remembers everyone saying they'd give her Sophie's heart. It was planned well, but her brother suddenly backtracked. He must have liked Sophie. That's why he couldn't bear to hurt her. Sophie was blind. What's the point of living? She might as well die, so that more people can benefit. If it weren't for me, I don't know what would have happened to them. They should thank me. No one at the police station believes her because of the public pressure. Many people are concerned about the outcome of this case, so everything was handled with the utmost severity. Isabella was sentenced to 20 years for a combination of charges. Liam was also sentenced to 5 years for harboring and destroying evidence. During the time they were taken away, I didn't sleep for 2 days straight. Robbed the Thompson Group of most of their cooperation. Tristan could never have imagined it. The rival company that competed with him the most over the years. Behind it was actually me. When I finished handling everything, when I returned to my apartment with a black eye, I was startled by the figure standing downstairs. It was Tristan. He was still wearing the clothes he had on the day he was taken away. His beard was unshaven. His eyes were red. Cigarette butts all over the floor. Sophie. I was so hoarse I could barely speak. Isabella and Liam have been arrested. You especially hate me now. I looked up. I looked at his face. Half hidden in the darkness. The streetlight not far away flickered. Illuminating the man looked strange. I ignored the pain and complex emotions in his eyes. Smiled at him. 4 years ago. I knew it. Tristan's face gradually stiffened with my words. The hand that was about to touch my face also stopped in midair. So all of this. I nodded slightly. I hadn't done anything. All of these things were true. She just did what she had to do, right? I really didn't know Isabella did it on purpose. That's why I kept it from you. Give me another chance. I'll make it up to you. Do you believe me? One word and he wants to cover up all the mistakes. In fact, he knows everything Isabella did. He just doesn't want to go deeper. It's also possible. Sophie and I didn't carry enough weight for him to send his sister to prison. He insisted. Marry me, make a good life for me, is the greatest compensation for me. He thought it would erase all the wrongs Isabella had committed. Only then, We can all move on with our lives in peace. Tristan opened his mouth. Tears fell along with his voice. I'm sorry. Then don't come. I sidled past him, went into the hallway. I haven't seen Tristan since. Emma told me. Isabella's environment in prison is too bad and too tired. The transplanted heart had its first rejection. Tristan was accidentally injured in a fight, now on medical parole, but he never showed up. The afternoon after the rain cleared, Emma and I visited Isabella in the hospital. The mental and physical blows made her lose her old confidence. Her condition deteriorated rapidly, despite being so weak that she needed a ventilator to keep her going. She still stared at me with hateful eyes, as if she wanted to pierce me with her gaze. Are you here to mock me? I smiled faintly, gently lifted her quilt, hand gently placed on her chest. The pounding heart is still beating tenaciously. You don't deserve this heart. I just wanted Sophie to see for herself how you ended up. Isabella seemed startled by my words. She rolled her eyes laboriously. Finally, her gaze stopped on Emma. Back then, Sophie went blind because of a problem with her optic nerve, but her corneas were still intact. So after her death, it was transplanted to Emma at the first opportunity. She joined the Thompson group right after graduation, started from the grassroots, slowly rose to the position of assistant. It was because of her help I was able to get the opportunity to work with Tristan before he did. I've grown quickly enough to compete with Thompson group. Isabella desperately struggled to get up, but was stopped by the prison guard who came in. I smiled and waved at her, said goodbye towards the heart, then turned and walked away. That night, Isabella died of resuscitation. A month later, I received a delivery from Tristan, divorce papers. The Thompson group had long since gone bankrupt, except for a few apartments that were previously transferred to my name. The rest of the property was basically mortgaged. He and I had nothing to share. I glanced at the agreement. I signed it quickly. On the day we mailed the letter, Emma asked me to go to the cemetery with her. This is the first time I've come to see Sophie in years. I've never dared to come before. I was afraid she would blame me. I couldn't avenge her. Now I can finally face her. I can tell her, those who did evil have been punished. The breeze blew by. Everything in front of me disappeared. I understand. The next road is the road I really want to walk.